Hi, I'm Cliff, and this is my garage. Today, I want to talk about making your car safer for the track and the fact that these things can kill you. Hey, welcome back to the garage. And if this is your first time joining me, thanks for dropping by. First of all, please do me a favor and go click on that like button down there to let YouTube know that you're enjoying the content that I'm making. It really helps me to grow the channel, which allows me to concentrate more time on making content. And if you're not one of my subscribers, there's this big shiny red subscribe button down in the same place. Give it a click. It's the best thing you'll do all day long. I'm in the process of increasing the safety of my 2012 Porsche Cayman, given that it's spending the majority of its miles on the track lately. This is mainly prompted by my wife. She's never said anything directly, but we were having a conversation last month and it suddenly occurred to me that she's really concerned about my safety in this new hobby of mine. So even if I'm really not very likely to have a crash during a DE, I'm willing to spend quite a lot of money to put her mind at ease. Well, at least a little more at ease. God gave me an amazing, wonderful woman for my wife, and there's lots of things I'd never do for myself that I'd happily do for her. In researching the subject of safety, I came to the realization that increasing the safety of the car in a crash is much like increasing the engine or suspension performance. You have to look at it as a complete interacting system of components, not individual parts. So you can't really go into this willy-nilly. If you only add some parts or in the wrong order, you can actually make your car less safe. The core component of crash safety is the safety belts, which drives the need for other components such as a roll bar. And rather than a roll bar, what you really want is a roll cage, not just the bar that goes over the top. For ultimate safety, a full roll cage that's welded into the car is what you really need to have. This gives you protection not only in a rollover, but also in a side impact, such as sliding sideways into a barrier. However, a full cage is a major pain in the butt in terms of maintaining the streetability of the car. I use my car as basically my daily driver. So for situations like that, most people opt for a half cage, which is what I've done here. And if that's as far as you want to go, that's okay. A roll cage increases your safety without compromising it in any way. After the roll cage comes the safety belts. Well, actually, the safety harnesses. Now, your typical seatbelt in your stock car is called a three-point harness because it attaches to the car at 3 points. Beyond that, you can get 4, 5, 6, even 7-point harnesses. Now, there's some like auto competition classes that require a 4-point harness, but most of the time for on-track use, you're going to need a 5 or a 6-point harness. The important thing about a multi-point harness is that they hold you very tightly in the seat and very upright, which has consequences that need to be accounted for. You can't slump over to the side, which is why you don't want to use a race harness in a car that doesn't have a good roll cage. Because, if that roof gets crushed down on your head, and you're strapped in real tight and upright, the only thing that can bend and give way is your neck, which is not a good thing. This is also the reason I don't recommend using a harness bar instead of a roll cage. A harness needs something to anchor the shoulder straps. While you can run the harness straps back into the rear of the car, this can actually backfire on you. First of all, having all that extra strap is also a whole lot of extra stretch, which can diminish the effectiveness of the harness. But more importantly, most people run those straps back and anchor them to the floorboard. Now, this is a really, really bad idea. That sharp downward angle causes the force vectors in a crash to crush down on your shoulders. I've recently seen a seat back that was actually folded in half during a crash when the straps were angled down like that, you should never exceed 20 degrees from the horizontal, from your shoulders to the rear anchors, and preferably you really should stay under 10 degrees. Now, while a harness bar does give you strap anchor points that are high up and right behind the seat, they do nothing to protect you in a rollover. So I say that if you're going to do this, do it right and install a good roll cage. The fact that the seat and the harness hold you so tightly upright is also the reason you should never use a harness without also using some kind of a head and neck support system and an appropriate helmet. Now, the original head and neck support system was called a Hans device, head and neck support. And it was designed to keep your neck from taking the force of a crash. The belts of the harness run over the Hans device and lock it down onto your body. Your helmet then connects to the Hans device using these clips. And that way, these straps end up absorbing the shock of the crash rather than your neck. In addition to generally protecting your neck, the Hans device was designed to prevent a very specific injury called a basilar skull fracture. Now, this happens in a frontal impact where the head of the driver is whipped forward and the neck is stretched out. It's almost always immediately fatal. It's ironic that NASCAR driver Dale Earnhardt was vehemently opposed to being required to use a Hans device, saying it was more likely to strangle him than save his life. 6 months later, he died from a basilar skull fracture after hitting the wall at Daytona in a head-on crash. Now, if he had been wearing a Hans device, he almost certainly would have walked away from the crash with just minor injuries. Like I said, crash safety is an interrelated system. Just as racing harnesses mean needing a Hans device, you also need to have a proper seat. The shoulder belts of a harness need to pass within 2 inches or so of your neck on each side. Any wider and they'll just simply slide off the sides of your shoulders. So your seat has to be designed so the belts can take that path, which generally means having harness belt holes like these in my new Corbeau RRX seats. In addition to the shoulder belt holes, your seat also needs to have a slot to accommodate an anti-submarine or anti-sub belt. Now, contrary to what most people think, the purpose of an anti-sub belt is not to keep you from shooting out from underneath the bottom of the harness and end up under the dash. No, the real purpose of the anti-sub belt is to keep the lap belt from sliding up off of your hip bones. Your hip bones can take around 7,000 pounds of force without any damage, other than bruising. But if that lap belt slides up just a few inches onto your abdomen, it only takes a few 100 pounds of force to give you major internal injuries. The fact that you only need to slide a couple of inches for things to go really bad is why your seat needs to have a slot for the anti-sub belt. It needs to go down right in front of your nether regions to stop any motion. If your seat doesn't have an anti-sub slot and you just run the anti-sub belts over the front of the cushion here, now they're pretty much completely ineffective at stopping that little bit of forward motion that's going to get you badly hurt. Okay, so there you have it. To really make yourself safe, you can't just install a race harness or just a roll cage. In fact, as you've seen, just installing a race harness can actually make you less safe. Now, before you go, as I said before, please go down there, find that thumbs up button, click on it, and let YouTube know that you're enjoying the content that I'm making. And if you're not a subscriber, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That also helps with growing the channel, letting YouTube know that you value what you're finding on my channel. And finally, if you want to keep up with everything that's going on in the garage and everything on Project 987.2, including the installation of the roll bar, the seat, and the harnesses, along with a lot of other performance mods, go down there and click on that bell icon. That turns on notifications for this channel, and that way YouTube will let you know every time that I post something new from here in Cliff's Garage. I'll see you next time.